Hello. Hello and welcome to another edition of Atlas Information Live. I'm your host, Atlas Alex, and today we are going to be exploring the esoteric depths and scope of this oh so famous practice known as mindfulness. And in the process, we are going to unlock some profound truths that it's fair to say that the vast majority of individuals who preach mindfulness and who even practice mindfulness know very little about, if anything at all. And it's a shame because, as you will see, there is an opportunity in our self-observation and self-remembering to expand our consciousness, expand our awareness. So very often we associate mindfulness and self-observation, obviously, with observing ourselves. It's in the name. And the realm of our mind and our emotions and our sensations. And of course, our immediate surroundings. To know where we are and to know where we stand in those circumstances. And to know what is happening within our psychology, including our thoughts, our emotions, but also our sensations. To be present in the body, not elsewhere, not daydreaming, not thinking about the past or worrying about the future. So all of this we typically associate with mindfulness and paying attention to where we are and who we are with and what we are doing. And in the self-observation aspect of that, paying attention to how we are reacting without identifying or becoming attached to those reactions. So how is our mind reacting automatically, mechanically? And what elements within our mind, within our heart, within our body are responsible for those mechanical reactions? Which egos are we dealing with here? Because as you know, we don't have one ego, we have many egos. Fear, lust, pride, greed, gluttony, laziness, etc. And it's important to be aware of the causes of our emotional state, our mental state, our physical state, moment by moment at any given time. But particularly when we face some sort of challenge, some test or ordeal, some set of circumstances which clearly trigger something within us and something bubbles up, some negative emotion, which causes us suffering, right? Heightened blood pressure, heightened heart rate, sweaty palms, and of course, all of the internal psychological, hormonal changes associated with anger or fear or lust or gluttony or any kind of craving, any kind of desire or aversion. So this is all part of mindfulness and being mindful. And most people would agree and understand that that's the primary focus of mindfulness. And then in the spirit of as within, so without, and as above, so below, the law of correspondence, we want to observe ourselves with one eye in and one eye out. So if elements within me are being triggered and elements are coming up, bubbling up from my subconscious mind into my conscious mind, and they're trying to take me over, they're trying to possess me in the moment. That's why we have that expression, my goodness, what possessed me? Whatever possessed me. Whatever possessed me to do that, or whatever possessed me to say that, or think this, or react that way, or lose my temper, or whatever, right? You know that expression. And the reason we have that expression, what in heaven's name possessed me to do that, is because in those moments we are possessed. When we are acting out of fear, out of spite, out of shame, out of guilt, out of any kind of desire, craving, and aversion, and that we lose consciousness, we lose sense of ourself, because in the moment we are possessed by whatever entity desires that which we are being tempted by. So in order to fully comprehend and appreciate the holistic nature, we must be mindful of the thing that is the object of our desire, or the individual, or the circumstance. So in a very crude, simple, but almost universally relatable example, there's that second slice of cheesecake, or that last slice of pizza, or another scoop of ice cream, or the bottom half of the bag of Doritos after you've finished off the first half. There's always something, and that it is so easy to say to ourselves, oh, well, it's not going to hurt. It's not going to kill me. Once in a while is fine. And that's effectively true. There's nothing wrong with indulging every now and then. It's the shift from every now and then to then and now almost every time that we have to worry about. And it's a slippery slope. And if any of you have challenges with any sort of substance of any kind, whether it's food or drink or smoking or anything at all, you know that it's always a slippery slope, and that whatever it is that drives you to these certain substantial weaknesses or substance weaknesses, you can tell yourself, oh, I'm only going to have just one. Well, if it's a bag of Doritos, it's almost impossible just to have one, and even just a handful. And there are so many things today, foodstuffs today, that are engineered for us to consume automatically and mindlessly. They're actually chemically designed to have certain physiological effects on us. They trigger the opiate effect in the hypothalamus of the brain, much like opium. That's why we have that term, opiate effect. And sugar and MSG both combine, but the way fat and sugar and everything combines in They actually engineer the food that way. The junk food. You know what I'm talking about. So there's that aspect of it. To be mindful and paying attention. If you're mindful while you're having that second slice of cheesecake, you should be asking yourself, do I really want this cheesecake? What is it in me that really wants this cheesecake? Or it could be that you're just focused in on the flavor and the taste and everything else, and you decided that you're going to indulge and you're going to enjoy the moment. And as I said, there is a time for that when it comes to these little vices of ours. Because if you deprive yourself and try to suppress and repress all such longing for experience and all such pleasures, then invariably and inevitably the wolf will come and eat you alive. That's where the term Steppenwolf comes from. It means to walk with a wolf, or walking with a wolf. And our egos, our demons, our vices, those that are responsible for our vices, you have to know how to throw them a bone. You have to know how to, as Buddha said, walk the middle path. Not entirely abstaining, not saying to yourself that, no, I can never eat any carbs, or I can never eat another chocolate chip cookie, or I can never eat any fried food, or I'll never eat any Doritos or potato chips, or I'll never, ever, ever have anything. That's abstention. That's avoidance. That's cutting off an entire category of life experience when it comes to it. In this case, foodstuffs and culinary experience. And avoidance in that way may appear or may seem like virtue at the time. But any virtue taken to the extreme becomes a vice. It becomes a trap. And most assuredly, what is behind such extremes of abstinence and extremes of asceticism is the mystic pride that wants to believe that we are holier than thou and holier than everybody else, because we are able to deprive ourselves of all worldly pleasure and all worldly activity, all worldly desires. And the ego mind, mystic pride, wants to take that literally and apply that literally. And we must be mindful of that. And the prototypical practice that teaches us the middle way in its pinnacle form is the practice of sexual alchemy, the practice of white tantra. Because, as you know, in white tantra, we practice scientific chastity, which is not abstention from sex. It is engaging in loving sexual union with our monogamous partner, our spouse, but not indulging lust, not indulging the desire to fornicate. which technically means abstention from orgasm, but not abstention from sex. So that is what Master Samael referred to as the path of the razor's edge, because it is a razor's edge. If you've ever attempted to practice white tantra, you know that the practice entails transmuting the sexual force, but that means the sexual force must be woken up. The Kundalini, the fire must awaken. The fires and the waters must awaken. To dissolve that which needs to be dissolved and to crystallize that which must be crystallized, the water must boil at 100 degrees. Benjamin says, hello. Hi, Attlas. And we say hello back to Benjamin. Nice to have you with us. So when we practice our mindfulness, we have that tightrope, that difficult path through the narrow gate, as Matthew called it, to consider. And when you're walking on a tightrope, you're walking on the path of the razor's edge, it's very easy to fall on either side. You fall into an extreme, either one way or the other way. Whereas the middle way, that the path of non-identification and non-attachment, the path of being in it but not of it. And when you meditate on that phrase, you can comprehend how it encapsulates the essence of our existence here and now. We are in this body, but we are not of it. We have a mind, but we are not the mind. We have an emotional center, the heart, but we are not the heart. That means we have thoughts. Thoughts occur, emotions occur, sensations occur. But we are not those thoughts, emotions, and sensations. We are the one experiencing those thoughts, emotions, and sensations. In other words, to say, I am hungry or I am thirsty is a lie. To say, I am depressed or I am anxious is a lie. Is a lie we tell ourselves. But it's a very clever form of neuro-linguistic programming in which the egos behind those states and emotions and sensations and desires convince us that they are us. So if you say, I'm hungry for some cheesecake. I am hungry for some cheesecake. You're identifying with an ego that happens to be hungering for cheesecake, not because it wants cheesecake, but because it wants your consciousness and your sexual energy. And it is using cheesecake as the method, the vehicle, the vessel by which it's going to tempt you and lure you into the actions that it wants you to take, which is to indulge it. And by indulging it fornicates with you. And through that fornication, it gets what it wants. It gets the outcome that it desires, which is not really the cheesecake. The outcome that it desires is your identification and attachment to it, to that I that it presents itself as, and your identification and attachment to its desires. That as you indulge them, you think you're indulging one of your desires. Meanwhile, what you are doing is you're feeding one of your egos and making it stronger and making yourself weaker. You are enslaving yourself further. Without this context, mindfulness is, I won't say it's useless or pointless, but it is greatly diminished in its value. Because if you don't have the context of the Alm of Life and of revolutionary psychology, if you don't have the context of egos, the adversary, your individual shaitan, if you think that indulging your pleasures is why you are here, because, oh, we're here to experience and we're here to experience everything, if that's your belief system, then you can practice all the mindfulness in the world that you want, and you're just going to be mindful of the fact that you're slowly turning into a demon. You're slowly awakening as a demon. In fact, the more mindfulness you practice, indulging your egos, the more you are becoming a black magician. And the more you use new age techniques like manifesting your desires, the more you are becoming a black magician. Why is that? Because manifesting desires, that is an outcome. And the only reason one would manifest one's desires is because one is completely and wholly identified and attached to said desire and the outcome that one desires. And when we look at that word, outcome, the reason why I said that it's sexual alchemy, white tantra, is the pinnacle practice of the middle road, the path of the razor's edge. Because just one moment here. Let's okay. That one. You don't have to be a literary genius. You don't have to be a linguist to understand what these two words mean in relation to sexuality. And specifically, what they mean in relation to the orgasm. And desiring any outcome is tantamount to psychological fornication. There is an I, an ego, that has planted that desire for that outcome. And you, as you know, desire, if D is un and sire is throne, through desire we are unthroned, we are dethroned. Yeah, let's not use un, let's just use D. Our higher self, our true self, is dethroned with desire. And the outcome, the sexual force, that's our divine mother, that's our fire, right? It flows down and out. Again, without this context, without this understanding, mindfulness can have the opposite of its supposed intended effect. You will awaken by practicing mindfulness. You will awaken. But what they don't tell you is that if you are mindful of your fornication, your masturbation, and your indulgence of every desire, then you will awaken as a demon. You will awaken negatively. You will awaken to the fact that your fire is flowing down and out. That is what the tail of Satan represents. That and the Kunda buffer organ. That's our energy flowing down and out of us. But that is the outcome that egos desire, to dethrone. In other words, another way of saying this is we are Kundalini, who is either a virgin or a whore. This is the choice of our divine mother. Do we make of our divine mother our precious sexual energy? Do we make of her a virgin, the Virgin Mary, the mother of Christ? Or do we make her into the whore of Babylon, which represents the entity which causes the fall of the Tower of Babel, the fall, like the fall of Adam and Eve from the Garden of Eden. That is the outcome of the whore of Babylon's influence. So we must be mindful of this. As we take stock of the psychological machinations within us, emotional and mental, but also physical, the sensations. Because when it comes to cravings, you feel not just in your head, you feel those in your body. Now, sometimes if you've done a lot of exercise or you sweaty or whatever, you might crave electrolytes. You might crave something sweet and salty, right, to replenish lost carbohydrates and lost electrolytes through your sweat. That's a different kind of craving. But when you crave chocolate, or when you crave pizza or lasagna because you had a really bad day or a really bad week, or you crave to, eat an entire bag of potato chips or crisps, as you call them in Europe, or perhaps elsewhere around the world, or Doritos or whatever, right? Those carbs are comfort food. Maybe you'll eat an entire plate of mashed potatoes and gravy, or you'll have that French Canadian specialty called poutine, which is French fries covered in cheese curds and gravy. These things, of course, are delicious, but how they make you feel, lots of people, including myself, suffer from emotional eating. And the craving for that is much more than just psychological. Like, I want some chocolate. Like you it's a deep down, like when you've had a lifetime of emotional eating, it's like alcohol. Your body develops a is conditioned and has developed a reliance upon certain substances. So depriving it wholly of those substances can be very difficult, very tenuous. Although in the case of alcoholics, many alcoholics find they have to go completely dry, because many of them find if they have so much of as a glass of alcohol, they so-called fall off the wagon. But that's really an issue of that's also an issue of lack of willpower. However, you cannot underestimate the hold that substances can have over the physical body. So again, it's all of this falls into the category of mindfulness and being mindful. And the revolutionary psychology aspect of it, the psychology, is not practiced by many. It's not understood, not known to many. They know nothing about why it might be wrong to indulge their every desire, their every whim. Oh no, I'm being spiritual. I'm indulging in the unlimited abundance, and I'm experiencing. We're here to experience. We're God experiencing Himself. So why would we deprive ourselves of anything? And then they throw all kinds of excuses at it, because that's religious, and that's dogma, and that's this, and that's that, and that's right, and they have all their excuses and all their rationalizations to keep doing what they're doing, which is remaining possessed, even as they believe themselves to be on the path of enlightenment and on the path of 5D ascension. Well, that's the mystic pride that I spoke earlier about. Benjamin has a few comments that he's been waiting patiently for me to get to. I had a thought today about passion, that I can confuse passion for staying on the path and the passion that attacks us. Sure, got into the weeds with that one. That I can confuse passion for staying on the path and the passion that attacks us. So that's very interesting. Because we use that term passion to describe, for instance, someone who angrily defends themselves or others, or philosophy, a work of art, or their hobby. So a good example of this is fandom. So fans of this or that entertainment franchise, entertainment property, will get very angry when that they will be incensed, frustrated, and incensed and angry, and even lash out when their particular mythology that is so near and dear to their hearts is disrespected or sabotaged in some way, like by woke Hollywood, for example. And Henry Cavill went on record as saying, no, those aren't toxic fans. They're just really, really passionate. And there is a danger in using the word passion this way for the very reason that Benjamin has brought up. And you will often hear this term, righteous anger, thrown around. That we all know that getting angry and losing one's temper, generally speaking, is not desirable. It's not beneficial. But virtuous and spiritual people, especially Christians, like to point out the scene where Jesus is ejecting the moneylenders and the livestock traders from the temple. And that this was a rare exhibit, a rare exhibition of anger on the part of Jesus. And they refer to the wrath of God as expressed in the Old Testament in many places as being expressions of what they call righteous anger. So that if someone were to burn down the church where you worship, then clearly you're going to be angry about it, and clearly you're going to seek justice, and clearly you're going to seek justice via the righteous anger that you feel for the fact that your house of worship was burnt down. And we tell ourselves that it's because we are so passionate that we are willing to go and suffer and fight for what we are passionate about. And specifically suffer this so-called righteous anger, because anger burns. Anger is unpleasant, righteous or not. When we're angry, we're being burned. We feel that burning sensation. And as you know, the definition of passion is that which we are willing to suffer and die for. So there is that. There is also the passion. You see, the way Benjamin phrased it here, he says, confuse the passion for staying on the path and the passion that attacks us. It's the same passion. Lust is not passion, but lust will exploit passion. And if you practice White Tantra, you know that you have to work with lust. There needs to be passion there, but there needs to be sexual arousal present. And your passion for your spouse, you would do anything for them. You would give your life for them. And when you feel that love, that passion, that burning passion in the sexual act, lust is just waiting to take advantage of that and exploit that. So it's not the passion that attacks us. Just as anger exploits our passion, but we can be incensed without being angry. We can remain passionate, and we can take steps to defend that which we are passionate about without losing our temper. But it's anger is very quick to bubble up inside of us to exploit that passion. The trick is that if we allow our passion, if we indulge our passion and allow our passion to run away with us, right? That's when the egos take hold of it and we lose the sense of ourself and we lose control, in other words. So if we want to be passionate, but we want to be in control, if we let our passions get out of control, our passions run away with us, egos exploit them, and now our passion is being filtered through subjectivity, through our ego. So the passion you have for your spouse, if you just run with it unabated during sexual alchemy, you're going to fall. You're going to have it's going to end up with an orgasm, because you've experienced that. If you've had sex, you've experienced passion that runs away with you. Well, it's your lust that's running away with your passion. The dish ran away with the spoon, right? Your lust will run away with your passion if you let it. If you let your passion loose, it's like the difference between having a wild animal that's tamed versus letting that wild animal loose. It becomes unpredictable. It's going to do what wild animals do. So it's important when we are being mindful of our passion, that passion is that fire, that creative fire inside of us. It is the creative force, that which we're willing to suffer and die for. That is selflessness. That is, at our level, an expression of the Christic force. To create through that selflessness, through that passion. But that creative force is the sexual force. It's also what the egos want. So just be mindful of that. And Benjamin sent us another comment, and he said, what I understood is that to think of this process in the long term and not the short term, but hold ourselves accountable in an initiatory sense, in this case, and it's misunderstood, or at least I did. Mindfulness has to be in the now. Here and now. There is no future. There is no long term. What long term? You don't have a future. You could get hit by a car tomorrow. A meteorite could fall on your city in half an hour. Then where would you be? We only have the eternal now. It's only now, in this moment. So practically speaking, when we look at our life, we, in any given moment, we can say there are two lines. Yeah. The line of life and the line of being. And over our life, we would hope that, when we are born, generally speaking, we're born innocent. But then, we develop our personality and the egos incorporate. And we would hope that over time, we're going to do something like this, but that over time, on the net calculation, the metaphysical, mathematical state of our being is that our level of being will increase over time. But here and now, moment by moment, that's at each moment along this process, they were moments, individual moments of time. These were the defining moments of our life. And then the day-to-day practice, right? Which are also defining in a way, but they're certainly, they don't have that whiz bang miraculous aspect to them, right? And they're uneventful. They're practicing mindfulness as you make your bed every morning, or as you prepare your breakfast every morning and lunch and dinner, and remaining mindful while you're doing these menial, everyday domestic tasks. This is not something that anyone really considers as being pinnacle or life altering, life defining moments of their life. But they are. It was the Buddha said, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. And after enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. Because I don't know about you, but my life is pretty mundane, day in and day out, moment to moment. But in that mundanity is tremendous opportunity. Because if you can find the living, breathing Word of God, that is God in activity, right? The creative verb, the Word, in the mundane, in the everyday, within and without, right? Then you are reading from the book of Tot. You are reading from the book of life. More importantly, you are developing and cultivating profound awareness, profound awakened consciousness, little by little, little by little. And in accordance with the Alm of Life, you know that this process is a spiral process. Wow. That's why this line here, there's ups and there's downs, because on the Alm of Life, and you should know this, in order to get to the next level, if you start here, in order to get to the next level, you must descend to the next lower level before you can ascend to the next higher level. All right? You have to go down before you can go up. There is no other way. You cannot avoid this. It is impossible. And to prove that to yourself, try to sit down at a piano and play Rachmaninoff. And you discover there is no way that you could sit down at a piano and play Rachmaninoff unless, because Rachmaninoff represents, in terms of piano playing, Rachmaninoff represents the highest possible level of piano playing. And it is simply not possible to reach that level without first going through chopsticks and a little Mozart and a little Beethoven and then Bach, and right? I mean, you've got to work your way up to Rachmaninoff. And certainly you would never step out on stage and play Rachmaninoff in front of an audience for the first time without having what? Without having practiced it. Learned it, practiced it, and suffered terribly and tremendously in your bid to master any particular piece of his, or Bach, or there are many composers who have written some very, very challenging pieces for the piano, for the concert pianists. But the point is, in that practice, in that study, in that practice, you go through a great deal of what we call it failure. What makes you fail, what causes you to fail, are your defects, right? Your shortcomings, and in many cases, your egos are responsible for a lot of this. But your conditioning, your shortcomings, your egos, your defects, your vices, bad habits. There's all kinds of stuff. As Yoda said, you must be willing to unlearn what you have learned. Bad habits, false beliefs, false practices, false approaches to fingering. I'm not an expert pianist, but I imagine someone who has been playing all their life, when they first encounter Rachmaninoff, they discover that much of what they thought they understood about the piano is not serving them in trying to play this next level of music. So there's a suffering, there's a kind of hell that we go through in order to rise to the next level. But we must be clear about this, that this is always in the moment, moment by moment. And it is mindfulness, it is self-observation and self-remembering that is the key. Because you have to descend into hell before you can ascend. But if you do not see clearly, if you cannot clearly identify, grasp, and comprehend the vices, defects, shortcomings, egos, the conditioning of your subconscious mind and of your subconscious body and your subconscious heart, the three brains, the mechanicity, the conditioning that is the algorithms that are now in charge, that are holding you back, you can never ascend to that next level. You won't be able to go on that upswing if you can't defeat the Balrog, the demons, right down here in hell. Because it's in the defeating of the adversary, right? It's in the elimination of that which is holding you down and holding you back and preventing you from advancing to the next level. And this is why, D&D and RPGs of every conceivable kind deal with XP and levels. Because XP is experience points. And when you get enough experience points, right, when you defeat enough baddies, you get to level up your character. It's just how it is. It's how it goes. And where do you find the baddies? Well, if you play Diablo or Path of Exile or any of these Elden Ring or any computer role-playing games, Zelda, right? It's out in the wilderness or it's down in the dungeons, right? You got to go into hell. You got to go into the dungeons. You got to defeat the monsters there to get your XP, to get your loot, to level up your weapons, and to level up your character and level up your powers. And then what do? Right? You come back to town and you sell all your gear and you change all your gear and your spells and you get powered up and leveled up. And then what do? Then you go back out into the wilderness, into the wilds, or down into the dungeon again. But now you go to fight even bigger baddies and more of them because you've leveled up. So when you level up, you got to go into a deeper level of hell. And that's it. That's how it works. But at any given point in time, as you're playing the game, you have to be present here and now and mindful and aware of the game that you are playing. And that game is always in this moment. Because if you're trying to play Rachmaninoff on a piano, you can't be thinking about the future or the past. You have to be focused. You have to be concentrated on what you are doing, on where you are, on what you are doing. That also is, Yoda says that in Star Wars, in Empire Strikes Back, to Luke. Benjamin says, thank you for that walkthrough. Well, you're welcome, Benjamin. So all of this comes into play when we talk about mindfulness. But where I want to take you next is the title of today's live stream. And that is The key of soul. Now, soul means soul, but it's also the sun. For example, sole, right? But soul is Latin for sun. Many of the Latin languages have soul or sole related to the sun. And so this of course also relates to the soul of man, because the sun relates to the Christ. All those foolish historians and anthropologists and archaeologists and theologians who think that this pagan culture or that ancient culture worshiped the sun, they get it all wrong. They didn't worship the sun, they worshiped the Christ. Just so happens that the Christ is in the sun. All the stars of the universe are living embodiments. They're all Christified masters who have reincarnated, and they have those planets because suns have humanities on them. They're planets. They're planets of highly, highly advanced humanities. And they're not humanities like we would understand them, or they're not necessarily physical, or their physical bodies are beyond our comprehension. But in the internal realms, in the fourth and fifth dimension, for example, they have entire cities and civilizations on the sun. And any star in the galaxy, any star in the universe, like most of the planets are inhabited, but they're not inhabited in the way that we think, because we can only, from our materialist scientific perspective and our limited perspective, which is physical, and our limited perspective as carbon-based life forms, right? Despite the fact that we had a show called Star Trek that explored life forms that were not carbon-based, but based in other elements, it is inconceivable to us to accurately predict what those life forms look like, or what their physiology, is like, because we barely understand human anatomy and human physiology. And the carbon-based life form, I mean, our understanding is so limited. It's so when we talk about a silicone-based life form, or an oxygen-based life form, or pick another, a magnesium-based life form, pick another element that, is it possible? Is it not possible? I don't know. I'm not a cosmo creator. I'm not at that level, right? So when we're talking about the key of SOL, we're talking about the key to the soul, okay, which are the solar bodies. The solar causal body, the solar mental body, the solar astral body, and the solar vital body. That constitutes the human soul. The human soul is the solar causal body. But to get there, you have to awaken in the vital body, in the astral body, in the mental body, and then the causal body. That's in the sixth dimension. That's part of your monad. That's the human soul. That's the human soul, the divine soul, and your innermost. So the causal body, atmic body, and causal body, Buddhic body, and atmic body. And who would have thought that mindfulness holds the key to all of that? Self-observation, self-remembering. And it's the key of soul, of S-O-L. And that stands for subject, object, and location. Who, what, and where. The first part, subject, is the self-remembering aspect of it, or the self-observation. Okay? So, and that's the self-observation and self-remembering. Who? Who are you? Or who am I? And remembering, am I this body? Am I in the body? Am I these thoughts? Or am I having these thoughts? Am I experiencing these thoughts? Right? The subject, the subjectivity of the moment, the subjective self who is having the experience, this mortal self. Because you cannot deny that you are experiencing. Right? So who is experiencing? Who is the one who is experiencing? And who is the one who is experiencing through the one who is experiencing? There are levels to this. So you may choose to comprehend in the moment that, look, I'm just a mortal vessel, but my innermost being is experiencing through me in the way that a driver experiences the freeway through the vehicle of the automobile. And a race car driver experiences the Indy 500 or the 24-hour of Le Mans or the Paris-Dakar Rally through their race car. So this is the aspect that when we talk about looking within, and who or what, who is this I in this moment? Who is the I that is, conjuring these thoughts and these emotions and these sensations like we were speaking of earlier? Is it fear? Is it pride? Or could it be that something has come into my mind and it just popped in there, and as I'm observing from where it's coming from, there's no desire attached to it. It could be a non sequitur. It could just be a machination of the mind, or it could be that it was put there. By who? Who put it there? And this is where we can develop discernment, the ability to know the difference between just a random machination of the mind, of our AI mechanical mind, or when we receive in and through the mind something of divine inspiration, or some divinely sent information information that we needed in that particular moment, or guidance, or what have you. And it may or may not come with an intuitive impulse or an intuitive sense. Sometimes it just comes into your mind, and it's something that you needed to know, and your innermost put it there. But to discern that versus, was it one of my egos who put it there? Is it a trick? Is it a trap? Is it misdirection? These are not easy answers, and it's discernment we must develop in order to know the machinations of ego and how our being uses our faculties, including the mind, for our benefit. This all comes into the realm of subject, right? You are the subject of your life. Hopefully that is not a contentious statement. You are the subject of your life. You are the subject of study. It is, you are the enigma. You are the puzzle that must be solved in order to accommodate and achieve this process, right? That's the whole point of role-playing games. It is the character that is the vehicle, and the building of the character, the advancement of the character, allows for ever more profound adventures and profound deeds of great heroism. So in a role-playing game, the point of the game is to play the role and advance in the role that you are here to play. And that makes you the subject of any given moment. You are the subject. Now, this is not to be confused with self-obsession and narcissism. Because there is a danger that someone can become too subjective and too self-absorbed and self-possessed. But that's where the second aspect comes in. Object. Because you may be the subject of your life, but you are here. And in any given moment, whatever it is that you're here to do, you have to interface, you have to work with objective reality. So as we practice self-observation, self-remembering, that's all inner. That's all the subject. That's the self and the higher self and all of our I's, the egos. But the object, that is the what. And it is important to cultivate a kind of creative curiosity, a childlike wonder at the world that we're in, where we don't take for granted the things that we look at, or the things that we're using, the things that we're working with. It's as if everything that we see for the first time, or everything that we use, we're using for the first time, or feeling it for the first time. I don't know what was the last meal you prepared, or what is the next meal you will be preparing. But if it involves chopping up fresh vegetables, take a moment as you are performing that duty, that very mundane, everyday action. And really pay attention to what you're doing. Really pay attention to the object of your life, of your work in that particular moment. Because in that particular moment, that is the object of your being. That is the purpose of your being. Nothing else matters. When you are chopping onions for a soup or a stew or whatever it is that you're making, when you're chopping onions, nothing else matters but the chopping of the onions. Unless maybe you're might be heating some oil on the stove or whatever. So that also matters. You don't want to be burning the house down. But as you are chopping onions, I don't know how fast or slow you chop onions, but there's a good chance that you chop onions with a sharp knife. You want to pay attention. You want to feel that knife in your hand. And you want to know where that blade is. You want to know where your fingers are. And also the optimal way of dicing that onion into the pieces that you want, or that's required for the recipe for what you're making. And also that, that you obviously that you don't cut yourself and so on and so forth. But to feel that, not just grab it and do it automatically and, mechanically while your mind wanders elsewhere, but to actually really pay attention to what you're doing. What comes into my mind is that scene from Goodfellas where the gang is in prison and Paulie is slicing garlic for the sauce, and he's slicing like transparent slivers of garlic using a razor blade. And Henry Hill says, "Yeah, it was a very good system." Paulie, Paulie, Paulie using a razor blade to slice the garlic, and you put the garlic in the oil, and the garlic would completely dissolve. It was a very good system. But in that scene, you look at Paulie's face and the expression on his face as he's slicing like translucent uh, little slivers of garlic. And you look at the focus, the concentration on his face as he's doing that, right? He's paying attention to the object of what he is doing and why he is doing it that way. But you can expand your appreciation of the object. You can feel into the fact that if you're working with a living thing, i.e. those vegetables that you're putting into the dish that you're cooking, you can become aware of the elemental spirits of nature that are related to those vegetables. Or indeed, if you're working with meat, be aware of the Divine Mother and the elemental spirit of the animal who was slaughtered in order so that you could prepare it to be consumed. But then there is the actual observation of the object, which we'll get to in a minute. But Benjamin Raphael has a lengthy comment. Since I was young, I felt the heroic spirit you described, almost like being part of a role-playing game. However, I hesitated to express it openly, fearing others might think I was odd or that I wouldn't have any real impact. As a result, I kept it low-key and chose a more conventional path. Even so, I'm still working on nurturing that spirit within me. Sooner or later, that inner hero will catch up with us. And usually it's when we hit our 40s. And I'm sure you're aware of a little phenomenon known as the midlife crisis, When someone reaches their 40s, mid 40s, early 40s, late 30s, early 40s. I mean, it varies. The time can vary. Some people, they don't really go into the depths of their midlife crisis until they reach their 50s. But the classic midlife crisis thing is someone, they run out, they quit their job, or they buy a new car, or they have an affair. They they decide that they're going to like take up some crazy new sport, or they go buy motorcycles, and they're going to like motorcycle across the United States, or they're going to motorcycle across Africa, or what have you. And it's the reason is because we only begin to do what we are meant to do in the world in our 40s. That's when we begin to prepare for what we will ultimately be doing, what our innermost hero, our innermost being, our hero, needs to do in this lifetime. So we, as the Hanuman to our inner Rama, the mortal vessel, starts preparing for that heroic work in our 40s. So if you're living a conventional life and a conventional job, and just something, you will hit your 40s and you will become very aware, very conscious in a very, very profound way that you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. And everybody experiences this in some form or another. Now, some are able to ignore it. Others, like I say, they fly off the handle, and they have no way of truly understanding what's going on. So they interpret it with their mind, and their ego exploits the opportunity, and that gives them, they end up indulging this or that, because they're grasping at something, anything that's going to make them feel like their life has meaning and purpose. That's the midlife crisis. In a nutshell, it's a crisis of purpose. It's a crisis of meaning. And without discernment, and without having cultivated a deep personal relationship with one's higher self, and without the ability to receive information from one's higher self, the ego will fill in the gaps, and the ego will interpret that, and the ego will come up with all sorts of crazy things to do in order to make us feel like our life is meaningful. And Benjamin says, that's true. I've been feeling a bit stuck lately, and sometimes find myself tempted to explore a different path. Still, I'm doing my best to stay grounded and keep moving forward. So in my case, I write about this, of course, in the book, but I began Attlas Information, the blog. I began roughly when I was 40. And it wasn't until, no, I started doing videos as well, but I didn't start doing live videos. I didn't start doing Attlas Information live until I was, 46? 47? Yeah, 47. So I'm 51 now, and this is our 4th year. So I was 47. Mugaboo says, in ancient Egypt, one could only start teaching after 40. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Because before then, you don't know anything. You might think you do, but you don't. Benjamin Ochoa says, one could say if playing a video game is like feeling death, just suck meant to be. We're gonna come back to that. We're gonna wrap up the midlife crisis thing. So, and I was 50 when I wrote, What in Hell Is With Us, and 51 that I, did this campaign in the fall. So I'm doing what I was born to do, but it's slowly coming together. But it took me a decade of preparation, all through my 40s. But that was my primary focus, my primary job through my 40s was writing those articles for the blog and doing what I was doing, making all those memes and doing what I was doing. And also having the experiences that I needed to have, and meditating and doing everything that I needed to do to strengthen and widen and deepen the connection to myself, to Attlas, to become Attlas more and more each day for a decade. So, but it's a commitment one must make. It's a surrender. It's the word, ironically, in Middle English and Old English, this is not one word. This is two words. And it means that's what belief means. To believe, to believe in one's self. Means to serve one's self willingly. That's what belief really means. It has nothing to do with what you think is true or not. But you see, this is how clever the Black Lodge is in deception and degeneration and misdirection and miscommunication. They turned this phrase, to belief, into what belief is today. Whereas the true belief, to truly believe in God, is to serve your own innermost essence of God within willingly, to surrender to your higher self, to serve your higher self willingly. That is true belief. And that is to be faithful, to serve willingly, to serve faithfully. Belief has nothing to do with belief, and neither does faith. Because to be faithful to your spouse is not a belief. To be faithful to your spouse is to serve your marriage willingly, is to surrender to your marriage, is to believe, is to put yourself second to this greater thing. That is what it means to be faithful. That is what it means to believe, to willingly give of yourself for the sake of others, for the sake of your spouse, for the sake of your marriage, for the sake of your children, or for the sake of your innermost being. There's not in what I'm describing to you has nothing to do with what you think is true or not. Whether you think Jesus was born of a virgin or not, or whether you think he really rose from the grave or not. That's not faith. That's not faith. It isn't. Believing in the church or believing in scripture or believing in this or believing in that, that's not faith. That's horseshit. That's what that is. That's not what it means to be a Christian. It's not what it means to be faithful to God. It's not what it means to serve God. To serve God is to willingly give of yourself, willingly give up yourself to God. Remember, we were talking about passion, what you're willing to suffer and die for. What are you willing to give up? Your comfort, your security? Because a servant serves his Lord and master faithfully, just as a husband serves his marriage and his house and his children, his family, faithfully, willingly. He willingly serves. He willingly gives himself. That is what it means to believe. And Benjamin says, your book and your work are such a gift to humanity. I really hope they get the recognition they deserve. Well, thank you for that. Now, Benjamin, on a different note here, Benjamin says, one could say if playing a video game is like a feeling of death, just sucked in mentally by the VR world, it could also be true that the SOL subject object location experience a feeling of death, whilst being attacked by our ego is very implicit and lucid. I think you're conflating a couple things here, Benjamin, because the key of SOL is this is a practice of consciousness, whereas what you're describing here is being like sucked into a video game, being like getting sucked into the VR world. That's not the same as the practice of subject object location, because what you're describing, you lose the sense of who you are. You forget yourself while you're playing a video game. Generally speaking, you forget yourself and you become identified and attached to the character in the game world. Like you said, you get sucked into the VR world. But he said it could also be true of the SOL subject object location experiencing a feeling of death whilst being attacked by our egos. I'm not entirely clear what it is you're trying to say, but on the surface, there's a disconnect between these two things. Because when you're practicing subject object location, remember, this is all about mindfulness. This is all about self-observation, remembering, and remaining awake and aware. So it's possible that you can be practicing the key of SOL and while being attacked by your egos implicitly, but that doesn't mean you're getting sucked into the VR world. You might, but I'm not 100% clear on what you're trying to say. That's to be honest with you. I'm doing my best to try to understand the way you've written it, but it's a little unclear. So I hope that hopefully if we actually get through to the end of SOL, it'll help clear things up. So then the second part of SOL, we said object, and that includes, where we left off was really paying attention and exploring that object and really focusing and concentrating on it, really looking at it, really holding it, touching it, feeling it, but also feeling into the fact that this physical reality, while objective in a sense, is also an illusion. And we're limited by our physical senses. So to recognize, for example, the living thing that, remember we were talking about cooking, right? That this animal that you are preparing, that you're maybe chopping up, or you're cutting up a chicken or whatever into pieces and putting them into a pan to bake them or whatever, or you're breading them and frying up them, or to remember that chicken has a soul, has a spirit, and the elemental spirit of that bird is very real, and to remember that and to observe that. And this is how, for example, when you working with gardening or landscaping, or what I work with my colleague Wolfgang on ecosystems or whatever, and you can feel into the stones that you're working with, and you will know which orientation in which to put them and place them, not just because, oh, that's the good side or the good looking side or whatever, but because, no, you want to place a stone so it's upright. Well, what do you mean upright? Well, where's the crown chakra? Where's the root chakra? You can know that, you can feel that, right? But you have to observe, you have to feel into it, you have to let yourself be guided by the object that you're working with. You must take into consideration that greater omnipresent conversation. So there are levels to this reality, and this physical level is just the facade, is just the final veneer. But the foundations of this reality are energetic and emotional and mental, and then causal, consciousness itself. So is the object you're working with conscious? And to what level of consciousness is it? But then also the amount of time or energy or effort that went into this object. So you can feel, for example, if you pick up something that's made by hand. I experienced this when I was in Japan, and I like to go to the restaurant supply district, and there the Japanese handmade, hand forged cooking knives, made in the same fashion that the samurai swords were made in medieval Japan. And they're just, you can feel it. It's not just the weight, but you can feel the vibrational quality, the resonance, the presence of this object that you're holding. You can feel the passion, the energy, the effort, the time, and the expertise, the mastery that went into the fabrication of this object. It was made by hand. You're holding it in your hands. This is why people are willing to pay exorbitant amounts of money for handcrafted watches from Switzerland and handcrafted knives from Japan and handcrafted anything from just about anywhere. But with that, the meticulous care and commitment and passion that was put into that object, you can feel that, you can know that. But you have to be present. You have to be focused and concentrated on what in any given moment are you dealing with? What is around you? So who are you, subject? And what are you really dealing with? That's the object. And the third and last component is where are you? That's the location. Where are you? Now, you might think, well, that's easy. I'm in my house. Is that it? Where is your house? Right? You say, well, it's in my town. Okay. Where's your town? Well, it's in such and such a state or such and such a province or such and such a county or such and such a district. Okay. Where is that district? Where is that county? Where is that state? Where is that province? Well, it's here. It's in my case, it's Ontario. And that province, okay, well, what country is that province in? And what part of that country? So in my case, Ontario is in Canada. Is that your location, Canada? Where is Canada? Well, it's in North America, right? Now, keep in mind that as we're going through this exercise, this is not an intellectual exercise. This is the key of SOL. This is mindfulness. This is observation. This is presence. This is not thinking where you are. This is knowing where you are. This is not, oh yeah, I'm here and I'm there and I'm in this county and blah, 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 blah. This is not a mental exercise. This is a conscious exercise. And in fact, you probably shouldn't even start with, I'm in my house. You should probably start with, I'm in a chair in the living room or in my bedroom or in my study, which is on the second floor. And then feel that. I'm not on the second floor. I'm in the basement. And I can feel that. I can feel the house above me. I can feel myself in my chair. But actually, now that you mention it, you should start with, I'm in my body. And you should start with that. I'm in my body that's in a chair. And feel yourself in your body. Feel yourself occupying your body. And then feel that body that you are occupying sitting in the chair. And now feel yourself sitting in that chair in the space that you are in. and feel that space. See it, look at it. Really be present and aware to where you are. Now, where is that room in your house? Orient yourself consciously. Where is this room in this house? Is it in the northeast corner, the southeast corner, the second floor, basement? Where am I in relation to the rest of the house? And it's not a mental exercise, it's a conscious exercise. You feel this, feel it, feel yourself. And then the house is probably on a street somewhere, or you're out in the country. But where is your house located? And where is it? Is it on the corner of the street, or is it at the end of the street? Is it in the middle of the street? What is on either side of the house? Is there parkland around? Are there trees around? Businesses, other buildings? Where are you? Where are you? Where is your house? And feel yourself sitting in your body, in a chair, in a room, in this house, on a street, in a neighborhood, in a district, in a town or a city or a county. And in each step, you're adding more information to your location. So where's that? Where's your town, your city? Where are you in that city? And feel the feel your way out to the city limits. And then the province or the state that you are in, or the district that you're in. And the country that you're in. Are you north of the equator or south of the equator? Where are you in relation to the planet? And can you feel yourself on the earth? Can you orient yourself consciously to feel yourself in your body, in your chair, in your room, in your house, on your street, in your city, in your state or province, in your country, either in the northern or southern hemisphere, eastern, western hemisphere, this continent, that continent, and then on the planet? And feel yourself here on Earth, including the whole of the Earth. And then say, but where is the Earth? And now feel yourself in your body, in a chair, in a room, in a house, on a street, in a country, in a province, on a continent, on that part of the planet, on a planet that is spinning around the sun in the solar system. And now where's that solar system? If not in one of the spiral arms of the Milky Way galaxy. And now feel yourself in your body, in your chair, in your room, in your house, on your street, in your town, in your state, in your country, on this or that continent, north or south of the hemisphere, east or west of the meridian, on a planet hurtling around the sun in a solar system that's part of a spiral arm of the Milky Way galaxy. And you're doing this consciously. And I say, where is the galaxy? It's one of billions of galaxies in this universe. And all of that is the physical plane. And feel yourself here on the physical plane, in the universe, in a galaxy, in a spiral arm of the galaxy. In the solar system, on a planet, the Earth, hurtling its way, orbiting the sun, on the northern or southern hemisphere, or the east or west of the meridian, on this continent or that continent, in your country, in your province, your state, your county, your district, your town, part of your town, your neighborhood, your street, your house, in a room in your house, in a chair in that room, in your body. But all that, you're still just are now aware of your physical location, of where you are. So now ask yourself, could it be that I'm in the astral plane? And to test this, you could get up and jump with the intention of floating. And if you manage to leap into the air, I don't have to make a huge leap, just a little jump, but with the intention, all your intention and focus on floating, if you accomplish that, then you know you're in the astral plane. Because in the astral plane, there is no gravity. And then you will know another aspect of your location. Other things that you can try to do to confirm if you're in the astral plane or not is you can try to pull your finger. No fart jokes, please. You try to pull your finger and see if you can stretch your finger out like those Armstrong toys from the 70s and early 80s. You could, stretch your finger out like it was made out of plasticine. Or you could try to, if you're on a bus or if you're on a plane, try to push your hand through the seat that's in front of you, or try to do something that's impossible to do in the physical world, but can be done in the astral plane. Do that, and you will know where you are. And are you in the physical, or are you in the astral? Now, why is that important? And why is this practice important? Because if you do this regularly throughout your day, who am I? What am I dealing with? And where am I? And you finish after being aware of the universe and your place in it, and your body and your place in it. The only place left to go is, well, but is this the astral plane? or is it the physical plane? And then do a little jump with the intention of floating. It's not enough just to jump up and down, or do something with the intention of breaking the laws of physics. Because in the astral plane, there are no laws of physics. There's no physics. There's no physical. There's nothing physical. So why would there be laws of physics? So do something that will defy the laws of physics. And if you accomplish that, then you know you're not on the physical plane. Now you know you're in the astral plane. And if you do this regularly throughout your day, when you go to sleep at night, you will remember to do this in your dreams. And when you do this practice in your dreams, who am I? What am I looking at? What am I doing? What am I working with? What am I looking at? What's in my hands? And so on, what's the details, and really feel into it. Now, where am I? I'm in my body. I'm here. I'm in this place. I'm in this part. I'm on, this part of the world, on this planet, in this solar system, in this galaxy, in the universe. Bring it all back down into your body. And then ask yourself, but am I in the astral plane? And if you remember to do the test throughout the day, then in your dream, you'll do the same test. And guess what? You'll pass the test in your dream. You'll jump up with the intention of floating, and then you'll be floating. And in that moment, in that instant, you will awaken in your dream, and you will be lucid dreaming. Just as the practice of SOL will help you awaken during your day, which is why I couldn't relate to Benjamin saying, doing SOL is just like getting lost in a video game. No. SOL is this. The key of SOL is precisely the opposite of being lost in a video game. Right now, we're lost in a video game. We're lost in the video game life. We're identified with this character, and we're completely mesmerized by the 3D virtual reality that we call life. But SOL, subject, object, location, as part of our mindfulness and our self-observation and self-remembering, and also where am I, and am I in the astral plane? But you have to do this consciously. It's not enough just to do it mechanically. But if you do it consciously throughout the day, you will do it while you're dreaming, and then you will be lucid dreaming, and then you can travel. You can go and visit the Lost Library of Atlantis. You can go travel to other planets. You can go to the Temple of Luxor. You can look at the hidden secret chambers and all of the temples and centers of the Great White Lodge that are in the fourth dimension and fifth dimension that we cannot see on the physical plane. You can travel to the hollow earth, and you can experience all of that, right? In the astral plane. You can ask to see your divine mother. You can ask to see your innermost being. Now, this is not today's topic is not about astral projection, because there's other ways of doing astral projection. But the key here is subject, object, location, is that subject, object, the key of SOL can snap you out of your dream. And just like it can snap you out of a literal dream and allow you to awaken in the astral plane, in the same way, the purpose of the key of SOL is to snap you out of your dream here in the physical plane during the day, in your waking hours. When, let's face it, your consciousness is still asleep. So this practice, this is what real mindfulness is. This is what real self-observation and self-remembering, and what the key of SOL. And by the way, this was taught by Master Samael Enwayor. I don't take credit for this. Master Samael taught this, and the real benefit here is that this will actually cultivate in a practical, meaningful way the awakening of consciousness moment by moment throughout your day while you're doing the most mundane things and discovering all this magic and wonder and beauty and extraordinariness in all of this mundane stuff, and within the spectrum of the whole universe, and from the point of view of the whole universe that you're experiencing as an individuated essence of that, puts everything into context. And the whole of the spiritual journey, you are a soul, divine soul, here in this body, sitting in a chair, in a room, in a house, in a et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But to know that, right? Not just believe it, not just think it, but know it and experience it multiple times a day, moment by moment. You see, this is why this takes tremendous effort. This is not easy to do. It's not easy to remember to do, number one, and it's not easy to do. It takes energy, it takes effort to do. So all these energy leaks that we have and all this other stuff that we spend energy on, or we allow our energy to be wasted on, comes into a whole different context when we practice the key of SOL, the key of subject, object, location. When we're cultivating discernment, we're cultivating awakening and being present and awake and aware. And then the more we do this, the more we practice this, the more we will be able to receive vital information all around us and within us, and be able to discern its source, our higher self, our innermost being, our inner soul, and our inner individuated essence of the Son of the Christ, our innermost intimate Christ. But to enter into those secret inner chambers of ourselves, we need a key to unlock the vault doors. And that key is subject, object, location. That is the key of SOL. And that's why I love what Master Samael did with this teaching. The way the language works, the metaphor, the allegory, it's just so beautiful. And practice it. And it's like Tiffany says, Tiffany said, you are lulling me with your words. Okay, well, you practice this as a waking meditation. And this is why you will discover now very few, you have maybe never heard anybody talk about mindfulness like this before. Be mindful of where you are in the universe. Be mindful that you are in your body, and be mindful of where that body is in relationship to the building that you're in, to the street, to the house, to the neighborhood, to the district, to the county, to the city, to the state, the province, the country, the nation, the continent, solar system, galaxy, universe. And feel that and be mindful of that. And then be mindful of, yeah, but am I on the astral plane? Where am I? Who am I? And what am I dealing with? What am I looking at? What am I experiencing? And experience it, and experience all of it. And don't forget yourself. or what you're experiencing while you're doing the location part. Add everything into the scene. And not only will you awaken, and not only will you lucid dream, if you do, you start making this a regular practice throughout your day, then you're going to be doing this at night while you dream. And then you'll awaken from your dream and you'll be traveling in the astral plane. And remember to keep doing this while you're in the astral plane. This is the key to awakening. And you can begin practicing this, by the way, in your next meditation. Because at least in the next meditation part, you only need to deal with the who and the where, because you don't really, when you meditate, you're not really dealing with a what, right? So you can break this up into its component pieces as exercises. So in your meditation, you begin by focusing on maybe on the who part. Then if you do want to have a what, you can use just visualization and use retrospection visualization and retrospect on something you did that day. Use your conscious imagination in meditation to visualize yourself chopping those onions with that knife. And then location, the where, right? You can practice this in meditation to help condition the muscles of your consciousness and your psyche to begin doing this practice. And then start, when you remember doing it, it doesn't take that long. You don't have to do it. I stretched it out for the purposes of teaching, and so that we stretch it out to really accentuate the process. And if you did it in meditation, you would want to stretch it out and hyperextend and accentuate all of the steps that we were doing, right? Because that's what meditation is for. That's like when you're going to the gym to lift weights, right? You lift them, and you maybe lift them quickly, but then you slowly let them down, right? When you're doing weights, because that's the whole point. So you lift fast, but then you slowly let down, and because that's what's building the muscle. It's the eccentric that builds the muscle. It's the same thing that when you're practicing something like this in meditation, accentuate and stretch it out. But while you're doing it throughout the day, and the more you practice it, the better you will get at this. But that doesn't mean you want to do it automatically or mechanically, but you will get better at it, and you will be faster at it, and you will be able to do the steps much more quickly because you will be more practiced. It's just like what I explained at the beginning, like learning to play the piano or learning to play a difficult piano piece. You have to practice, and you have to begin with chopsticks, and you begin playing the piece at a very slow tempo, right? To get all of the notes, and you get a feel for everything, and then slowly you pick up the tempo as you're learning you're letting your fingers learn the piece and everything else, and you slowly pick up the pace, slowly pick up the tempo, right? Slowly amp up the difficulty, slowly amp up the expertise aspect of it. Nobody expects you to be able to do the key of SOL like this from the first time you did it, every day, every moment of every day for the rest of your life. No one expects that of you, and don't expect it of yourself. Start by doing it in meditation. Start by remembering to do it when you wake up and before you go to bed. And anytime you're doing any practice, right? Just start with that. Right? Make it a part of your morning routine. Like when you're having your coffee. Do you really enjoy your coffee? Do you really savor your coffee? What are some other little rituals that you do throughout the day, or things that you do when you brush your teeth? Do you really pay attention when you're brushing your teeth, or like me, do you have an electric toothbrush and you can be going and thinking about your day? Oh, what am I going to wear? What am I going to do? Right? I don't do that, by the way. I focus on what I'm doing. But I'm just saying those electric toothbrushes are really great for hypnotizing and making you become comatose. And you got some, toothpaste rolling down your face because you don't even have to brush your teeth anymore. The machine does all the work, right? That's what they tell you to do. I don't do that, by the way. I'm just saying there's another opportunity while you're doing your hair, while you're shaving, while you're brushing your teeth. In other words, part of your morning ritual, you can make the key of SOL part of your morning ritual. Now, you may not want to do it while you're driving on the freeway, right? You want to, be mindful of where you are and what you're doing, and be mindful that maybe your focus and concentration really needs to be on the object part, right? What am I doing? Oh, I'm driving at 65 miles an hour on the freeway. Okay. All right. Maybe I'll focus and concentrate on this, right? Again, to be mindful is to, once you get in, you can feel yourself in your body, in your car, going at 65 miles an hour on a freeway, but let's, or very gently, if you have a long commute, you have 45 minutes, you can get to the universe while you're driving in the car very safely, but very slowly and gently expanding out, right? And you can do key of SOL while you're doing anything and when you are anywhere. Just be safe and be mindful of what you're doing, and don't let what you are doing here and now in the moment fall away, right? That's why this is an additive process. This is not like in meditation, you can break it out and do SOL separately, but the key is what you want to do is do it all together, all at once, because that's what it means to be conscious and awake and aware. So you're not forgetting anything. You can't forget yourself when you start thinking about location. When you start, feeling out where you are in the universe, you don't forget yourself and you don't forget what you're doing. So this is where it's an exercise of expanding your consciousness and really working with your consciousness. And all of this should be part of, that thing that we call mindfulness. Everything that we've covered today. And Tiffany says, you are correct. I have never heard anyone talk about mindfulness in this way. It completely resonates and I get it. And Yang Sheng says, hi, Atlar. I think it's a typo. He meant Atlas. Hi, Yang Sheng. Thanks to have you. Nice to have you here. Look, I'm going to open it up for questions because this really should be straightforward now. It's just now you got the video available to you, and this, by the way, there is, if I can just find it for you. I'm pretty sure I looked at it. There. Okay, so there's a lecture by Samael Aun called The Key of Soul. Can you guys see that? So here is the link. The link is in the chat, and it's now on screen. So to get there, you go to glorian.org and go to learn and go to courses. Instead of courses and lectures, go to lectures by Samael Aun. And you can scroll down, and I wonder, is it under K or is it the? No, yes, yeah. So scroll down, it'll be under K. Here. There it is. Key of SOL. And you click it, and there you go. So it's easy to find. And there may be, well, they're not maybe, there for sure, there's going to be more insights there for you to glean from the practice. So that's really it for today. But I want to open up to any questions that anyone might have, or any comments or anything at all. We're getting towards the Christmas season, but I should be good to keep doing the live streams straight through to the holidays. Where today is episode 47, so I think there's 3 weeks left in December. So Young Shang says, "Hi Atlas, I just have a doubt from what I learned from Gnosis that physical and vital bodies are lunar bodies. Maybe I am wrong." Yes, they are lunar bodies, but your vital body can be solar. But right now they are lunar. That's why we have to practice transmutation and sexual alchemy. Yes, your physical body is lunar. It's going to remain lunar, but your vital body can be solar, and that's why you have to practice sexual alchemy and transmute the sexual force from lunar to solar, and then you create your solar astral body, your solar mental body, and your solar causal body. So the reason why I say that right now we are lunar, we are mechanical, right? Our physical body is mechanical and our vital body is mechanical because our sexual energy flows down and out, right? But we want it to flow up an atom. Where was my, yeah, okay. Because desires want certain outcomes. They want to fornicate with us. They want to consume our sexual energy. So the sexual energy is made to flow down and out mechanically, but they can flow, right, up an atom, up an atom, up an atom. That's when we make of our kundalini, when it flows, when it rises up the spinal column, then we make of our Divine Mother the Virgin. But if it flows down and out, then we make of our Divine Mother Kundalini, we make her into the whore of Babylon. And that's the tail of Satan, when the sexual force flows down and out. But it can flow up and at him. And so in the Pentecostal fire atop of the apostles' heads, the tongues of fire that the apostles received the Holy Spirit. That was the fire in the crown chakra, is a symbol of the risen Kundalini. Just as the halo around the heads of saints and martyrs and gods, and there's the serpent that shields the Buddha from the rain. That's all because all serpent symbolism and esotericism is all the Kundalini, right? Like the serpents rising up the caduceus of Mercury. So, but if it flows mechanically, if it's lunar, right? Because the moon governs mechanical nature, right? The moon governs the tides. The moon governs women's menstrual cycle, and the moon, like when it's a full moon, the wolves are howling and the people are going crazy in the cities, right? It's the moon governs mechanical nature. The moon is like the pendulum of a clock, right? That swings back and forth, that dictates the hands of the clock. The moon is like that for mechanical nature in terms of the planet. So if the oh, I just realized I didn't have this on the screen, did I? So so if the fire flows down and out, that's mechanically. We turn our I gotta redo this now. If the fire flows down and out, that's the tail of Satan. But if it flows up an atom, up an atom, up an atom, and up an atom, those are the tongues of fire atop of the apostles' heads. That's the risen Kundalini. That's when we make our Divine Mother into a virgin instead of a whore. Because if it flows down and out, then we make of our Divine Mother the whore of Babylon, which of course causes the fall of the Tower of Babel. Okay. Any other questions? So like I said, my plan is to go through to the end of the year with 3 more live streams. So 48, 49, and 50. So we should finish the year with 50 live streams total. If something changes, rest assured that I will let you know via Facebook, via YouTube, like I usually do. It might, hopefully not last minute, but we'll see how things go. I do have family coming next week for Christmas, but the plan is that we're doing it on Saturday. So so next week, Sunday, we should be on for Sunday. But anyway, any other comments or questions? Anyone at all? If not, I want to thank you for spending the time together with us all today. And now you know the key of SOL. This is, by the way, this is a fantastic thing to practice when you're outside, when you're going on your nature walks, or your hikes or whatever, even though it's wintertime. This is a fantastic thing to practice. That's why I chose this background, especially when it's sunny. But if you're skiing, you're doing whatever, and Christmas holidays, you're going to be family, maybe festive. There's the tree, there's decorations. There's going to be all kinds of opportunity for you to stop and be present and take notice. Really pay attention, right, to the things around you, the people around you, the sounds. We didn't really even talk much about sounds. All of your senses, engaging all of your senses, but most important, engaging your consciousness. Mugaboo22 says, great teaching as always. Yang Sheng says, thank you, Attlas. You're welcome. And thank you, Mugaboo22, for the kind words. Tiffany Miller says, thank you. What you share is always rich and inspiring. Cheers, everyone. Thank you, Tiffany. And Mugaboo says, have a good week, godly people. Yes, thank you. And you too as well. Benjamin says, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge today. The key idea of SOL is definitely something valuable to keep in mind. And Tiffany says, thanks, Mugaboo22, you too. All righty. Well, thank you all for being here again. I look forward to seeing you all next week. Take care, everyone. And as always, until then, inferential peace.